Hello there, and welcome to Andre's YouTube video for Monday, the 7th of January, 2013. Well, I want to ask you a question first. Any of you cartoon or animation fans? You ever seen this CD? It's Ren and Stimpy's Radio Days. It's released in 1995, and there's actually a little sticker up there talking about a Ren and Stimpy contest. This is actually my dad's CD. I got it from Amazon and let him borrow it. And the reason I showed that to you is because it reminded me of my lifelong love affair with radio technology, radio programs, music on the radio. Last night on my WordPress blog, I actually wrote a blog about hit music on the radio, like the Pet Shop Boys song. You're going to see a link appear right below where I'm pointing in a few minutes. Actually right now, for that blog. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the broader spectrum of radio today. Radio has always been a huge influence on my life. I never listened to talk radio, but the music I heard, some of the news that came with it. I remember listening to the radio on one very specific event, the day that Beatle George Harrison passed away, and talking about his life and playing his music and all of these different sorts of things. And radio definitely has the power to move, and it definitely has the power to enrich the lives of people. You know, the idea of an individual voice or a group of voices broadcasting, you know, out there. No pictures, just audio, hearing the voices, hearing the music, what they have to say. It's a great experience. Now, when I was younger, it was the 1980s, and during that time, there was still quite a lot, at least in the area I lived in, of radio programming. There was definitely of that sort, that 60s and 70s attitude. You know, there was new wave, and there was a lot of the MTV sort of era music coming out, but a lot of it, you know, still carried some great messages. Cyndi Lauper, True Colors, a great example, about, you know, prejudice of all sorts, but has been used to talk about interracial prejudice, sexual prejudices, whatever. And often I would hear anti-prejudice PSAs played after that. And, you know, a later area of my generation in the 1990s would say things like, oh, that's the Reagan era selling ideas, and it's all salesmanship, and it's all corporate. Well, it wasn't, and it certainly wasn't to me. That was the radio that I remembered and keep very near and dear to my heart. Now, during the late 1990s, you see, that all started to change. I started to notice, I used to love to listen to a station around here called 102.1 WGUI, hosted by a guy around here named Chuck Foster. And they used to play oldies. They'd have, you know, Fab Four Fridays where they'd play Beatles songs for a while. And then my favorite would be Motown Monday. You know, they'd play all the Supremes and the Temptations and all of this. And once in a while they'd sneak in an obscurity. But, you know, it was great to hear these songs and really experience them growing up. Not just in the sense of like a Time Life commercial. Oh, I grew up on this, so I want to buy it. But the sense that you'd hear a song like Reach Out by the Four Tops, and through that, you'd be exposed to a march or an Arabic sort of bass line from James Jamerson, who played on that song. And you wouldn't even know it. It would be subconscious. And years later, you know, you would gravitate toward music that would have a melody like, I'm going to try to sing it. Do, 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 do. You know, it's Arabic. And the bass line is even more so. And you'd hear this on the radio. And then all of a sudden, you started having something coming in the late 90s and early 2000s called Clear Channel. And what happened was the Clear Channel started to buy up a lot of radio stations around the country and in this area. And then they got into Sirius Radio and satellite radio, which you purchased. And there were radios for each individual kind of thing. Each individual kind of music, so you didn't quite have the variety there anymore. And then all of a sudden you had the situation of people like Stephen King, who had a station up here called WKIT, which is still independently owned. still independently owned, and they have people on there like Fred Zeppelin. They're a classic rock station, such as it were. And I remember one particular event in the late 90s, 1998, 97, I don't remember. There was a radio station that was being swallowed up by Clear Channel. And in protest, one of the DJs, I think it was at night, if I remember, played a continuous loop of the chorus of this new wave hit by a group called Fun Boy 3 called The Lunatics Are Taking Over the Asylum. You'd actually hear that played over and over again. The lunatics are taking over the asylum. The lunatics are taking over the asylum. And then a couple years later, Tom Petty put out a song called The Last DJ about the same thing. And only recently, because my mom had a broken down CD player in her car, we had to listen to radio. And it's just not the same. I'm not saying it's better or it's worse, but it definitely sounds controlled and pre-programmed now. It's everything that everybody complained that it was in the 80s, and it really wasn't. But now it is. And if that doesn't make sense to you, it really doesn't make sense. Radio is an enormous part of people's lives, and I think it should continue. And this satire that Ren and Stimpy did is a perfect example of that. You know, that even in the mid-90s, when people said, oh, radio's dead, when this was made, radio is still influencing people. So shout out to Stephen King, KIT, all of you people who are keeping radio the way it is and sending out a message to the people. Peace to all of you. Keep the music going. Keep the vibes flowing, as it were. And have a great day. See you next time.